Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to share my screen for one moment. As I'm sure most of you are on the call last week, we just wanted to put our contact information out there for you, just in case anyone does have any questions on our community. Just to recap, Brookside Court and Hilltop Place are now owned by Spring Living Retirement Communities, and we offer assisted living, independent supportive living, and we have a second floor that is secure as well for anyone who does suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's. So if you need anything, feel free to reach out to myself or Sandra. And we also wanted to thank Jaime again for putting on this webinar, and we hope you all find it very useful. I'm just going to click to the next slide and let Sandra just say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the second part of this webinar. And thank you, Jaime, for being so resourceful and giving us so much very useful information. Just want to remind everybody from last week is that the Renoir is the community in Newmarket. We are on Leslie and Gorham, and we do have independent living, assisted living, and we do have secured memory care for people with mid to late stages, Alzheimer's, dementia. We can take care of people here right to the very end, and we have palliative care as well. If anybody needs any information, my contact information is here on the screen. Please feel free to reach out with any inquiries that you have. Thank you so much, and we're going to pass it over to Jaime to start her presentation.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so today's topic is about communication and behavior. And I know that there are going to be quite a few questions about communications and behaviors, and maybe some things that you have experienced or things that maybe you have witnessed. And I welcome all questions. I'm going to ask my friends Sandra and Kristen to help out with the chat box if questions do come in. And at any time, if you have a question, I'd be more than happy to answer. So I am going to share my screen with you. Okay, can everybody see the screen okay?
Yep.
Great, okay. So communication and behavior are two very challenging things that start to deteriorate in individuals who are living with all forms of dementia. And we group these two topics together because, believe it or not, these two topics do go hand in hand. And I'm going to explain a lot about why communication affects behavior and why behavior can also affect communication. So I'm going to do just a little bit of a recap, and I'm going to test you a little bit. So this was from the previous presentation. So dementia is not a disease itself, but what is missing in this sentence here? What is dementia not? Anybody knows? Just call it out. There's something specific about dementia.
Cannot be cured.
It cannot be cured. Absolutely. You're 100% right about that. It is not a normal part of aging. It is not something that happens to everybody. It is common as we are starting to age and live longer. Dementia itself is a term to describe a series of symptoms that individuals experience with a diagnosis. So here are just a couple of symptoms that individuals experience with a diagnosis. So memory is absolutely one of the first things that families start to recognize. And I'm going to test you here. What kind of memory becomes affected?
short term,
Yeah, your short-term memory and
your long term.
absolutely. Your short-term and your long-term memory become affected. And this is because the part of the brain that becomes affected with Alzheimer's disease is your hippocampus. And your hippocampus is responsible for retaining information, new information, and holding on to those long-term memories. Judgment and reasoning becomes affected, your safety, your decision making, your ability to, I'll give you a hint, it's a topic, one of the topics for today.
Communicate.
Yes, communication becomes affected. The ability of sequencing of words to understand what other people are saying and the ability to find the words to use when you need to express yourself. The ability to function on a day-to-day basis and follow through with tasks that you were once able to do without any difficulties. And absolutely, we do see changes in moods and what would that last one be? Behaviors. So we see changes in moods and behaviors, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about why communication and behaviors are so important to recognize and how to work through each challenging stage as somebody is being diagnosed. Each individual that is diagnosed with any kind of dementia, there are over 100 different diagnoses, and each person will experience their own journey. Each person will experience certain symptoms, and somebody else might not experience those symptoms at all. It's going to be very difficult to differentiate between which stage one person is at other than somebody else. Each person is each person goes through the stage in their own time. They are not separated into the ability of, okay, now we're going to go on to stage 2 and here's stage 3 and we've just finished this stage. They do tend to overlap, and once we start to see more changes, then we start to see more of a progression within that specific dementia that has been diagnosed. So communication is a really difficult deterioration for not only the individual who is living with dementia, it's also quite challenging for the family and friends who are caring for that particular family member, friend, maybe living in a retirement home and they are assisting them and helping them along the way. It's not just how the words are being expressed. And by this image, it shows that your brain is responsible for so many things. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you where exactly each part of your brain is responsible for what function. But just alone in this image, for hearing words, for seeing, for thinking about the words, for speaking your words, you need to use multiple parts of your brain to be able to put something together. And when you are diagnosed with a dementia and your brain is starting to deteriorate and one part of your brain is being affected faster than the other, you are losing the ability to understand what other people are saying. And this is an example of what your brain looks like and what each part of your brain is responsible to make you actually work on a day-to-day basis on your functions. So it's not necessarily important to remember or even know what the frontal part of your brain is responsible for, or the parietal lobe. But what it is important to recognize is that on a whole, this is what your brain is responsible for doing for you. And as you do start to progress with dementia, that parts of your brain will be affected more than other parts. So your language will start to deteriorate. So yes, that is part of your parietal lobe. However, you will also start to lose the ability to recall information and have memories that you've had a conversation or words, and that's the frontal part of your brain. So these parts of your brains, we need them to all work together. And as dementia does progress, we do see how each part of the brain does start to deteriorate. And that's why we lose the ability to follow through on tasks, to find the words to express ourselves. Communication is really not just words itself. And as you can see just on this image here, it's only 7% that people actually take away from the words that are being used. 7%, which is so minute compared to when you're looking at a whole 100% chart. When we look at how people are retaining information that is being said back and forth to each other, the greatest percentage is in our nonverbal. People can read you by your nonverbal expressions, your body language, your gestures. That's how people are going to know if you're approachable, if you're friendly, how you're going to respond to them. Your eyes, and this is extra important, especially in today's day and age when we are experiencing COVID and we are all covered up in our PPE, and you're wearing your shield and you're wearing your mask, and you can't always hear what somebody's saying because now they're doubled up on the mask, they're wearing the shield. So what we really need to rely on is that body language. And if I can't see my lips, it's the rest of my body is going to show how I'm feeling, but it's also, you're going to rely on my eyes. And as that show with Tyra Banks, where she was teaching the modeling, you got to smile with your eyes, and your eyes are going to show somebody really how you are feeling and if you want to be in their presence. So if you're not comfortable in a situation, how do you sit there and make a facial expression? Do you squint your eyes and then you get that sprinkled up in between your nose here? Well, that's going to actually give that body language, that facial expression, that somebody's going to read from you that they are maybe not welcome or you're not interested in being with them. So body language is absolutely a huge part that we need to be aware of. Another part that is quite high as well is the paraverbal, which is our tone of voice, the pace of our voice, the volume of our voice. It's how we are actually expressing ourselves. Just because somebody who is might have some difficulties and challenges with their hearing doesn't necessarily mean you need to raise your voice. Maybe you need to get a little bit closer, but we're still going to stay within our social distance and within our bubble. But when we look at what it really means when we raise our voice, people will perceive that as you are angry with them. So if you raise your voice and you're saying good morning, but your voice is higher and your pitch is different and your tone is louder, somebody can perceive that with you being angry with them, because that 7%, they're not understanding what you're actually saying. It's they're reading that 38% of the volume of your voice and how it's coming across. So yes, sometimes we do need to raise our voice if there are some challenges with some hearing impairment, but it's also to be cognizant about how our tone might be. And something to also be aware of is that men's voices are usually at a lower tone. So individuals are able to hear and understand what men are saying rather than women, because women's voices, we usually have a higher pitched tone. So it sometimes becomes more of a challenge for people to hear what we're saying based on our tone. So I had a brother and sister who were actually in one of my education sessions, and they actually tried it out to see if mom could understand what the son was saying or the daughter, and she had a better ability to hear and actually understand what her son was saying because of the tone, and her daughter's voice was more of a high pitch, so she missed some of the content that she was trying to say. So sometimes we might need to just lower our voice a little bit and try and play and see, and the way we pace our tone to allow for somebody to hear what we're saying and to also maintain a slow pace. The faster we speak, the more words individuals will miss. And I absolutely just love this slide that actions speak louder than words. Mr. Bean and Charlie Chaplin, did you ever hear either of them use words? Never. It was always their facial expressions. It was always their body language, their gestures, but somehow we were able to follow the movies, as crazy as they were and are still. You were able to follow the storyline without one word being said by them. Here are a few tips when you are communicating with somebody who is living with any form of dementia that has been diagnosed. Number one, speak slowly and clearly. Avoid covering your mouth because it muffles, except unfortunately in circumstances with masks right now, we need to make sure that our words that we are saying are very clear. Why questions represent a test question. So we eliminate that why. Why did you do this? Why are you going here? Why are you wearing those shoes? Why are you wearing those pants? Why didn't you finish your meal? So we're using that word why to test to see if they can answer why they chose to wear those shoes. I wore those shoes because they were there and they put them on. They're not going to be able to explain why they didn't finish their meal or why they chose to wear that particular outfit, because they just chose it. It was there and they don't remember why they particularly chose it. And if they're not able to answer you, it's going to build anxiety and it's going to embarrass them for not being able to actually answer what your question is. So the best thing to do is to try, it's not easy, but to try and eliminate that why question. Routines are extremely important. When we're up and running and we have our 3-day programs running, all 3-day programs have the exact same schedule. So if any of our participants go to any one of our 3-day programs, they will be able to come into the program and not necessarily know that it's 11 o'clock and we're doing our exercise, but know and recognize that we're going to have our coffee, and after coffee, we're going to have our exercise time. And then after the exercise time is this program. So establishing a routine for somebody gives individuals the ability to have that safety, that reassurance, that they know what is coming and what is happening next. So it does reduce individuals' fears of the uncertainty about what do I do now and I don't know where I am. So routine, whether it's a calendar and discussing what is happening on a day-to-day basis, is really important. And I would be most certain that Sandra and Kristen have those in place within their retirement homes for residents as to what is happening throughout the day and every month, so people are kept up to speed on what the routine is. Redirection is a very important strategy to learn, and it's something that can keep you safe and keep your family safe as well. That redirection does take practice, and we use the redirection to avoid confrontation and correcting. So if somebody is going to say to me, Sandra's going to say to me, my goodness, it's a beautiful purple sky out there. And I'm looking outside going, what the heck is she talking about? I don't see a purple sky. So I'm not going to correct her, because that is going to, she might become anxious or embarrassed and become upset. So instead of correcting her, my redirection tactic might be, it is a beautiful shade of purple. I've never seen that before. Thank you for pointing that out to me. How about we go look at the picture in the dining room and see if we can match the same purple. So I'm not telling telling Sandra, you're wrong. There is no purple sky. It's I'm validating what she's saying, because that's her reality. And what really is important is to recognize that we are not trying to get individuals who are living with a dementia to join our reality. It's about joining in on their reality and making them feel safe and secure. And this is why we are avoiding those test questions, which coincides with those why questions. Test questions are going to get individuals frightened as to meeting expectations. And if they don't meet what they feel that our expectations are, they could result and turn out to be quite badly, which would be a behavior. And I'll talk about behaviors in a moment. So these are some 4 handy helpers. The first handy helper is don't argue. Has anybody ever tried to argue with somebody living with a dementia? I have. Has anybody ever won an argument with somebody living with a dementia? No. if your client or if your family member thinks that her husband is still alive, that is her reality. And arguing with her is going to create and encourage the frustration, the confusion, not only for her, but for you. So it's about engaging and communicating with her without giving her that reality orientation that her, excuse me, that her husband has passed away. So if she's really focused on her husband, have a conversation about him. My goodness, you must have really had some wonderful times with your husband. Is there something that you would do with your husband that you really enjoy doing? So you're really encouraging her to discuss the good times and prompt some conversation, but you're not telling her that her husband is no longer here and has passed away. You're encouraging her to discuss the good times. Use finesse and do not be afraid to fudge the truth. So this is when we have to be kind of like a poker player in a sense. So we need to be subtle, strategic when we're handling a difficult situation. So if somebody is asking where their husband is and we know that they have passed on, we don't want to say, I'm sorry, your husband has passed on, where they feel that they've actually just been in the dining room or they just had a coffee with their husband. And this is the first time that you're telling them that their husband has passed away. So how are you going to actually approach this particular subject? And oftentimes when somebody is upset and we apologize, I'm so sorry that you're upset. Is there something that you would like to do with your husband that I can do with you? I'm sorry, I can't get in touch with your husband at the moment. Is there somebody else that we can contact that you would enjoy speaking with? People have, and it doesn't matter if somebody is living with a dementia or not, people want to be heard and they want to be validated. And this is exactly a time when somebody is feeling fragile and vulnerable when they are asking for something or someone. And when you sometimes use the apology situation, it's giving them the acknowledgement that you are recognizing that they are upset, that you're recognizing what they are looking for, and you're also trying to find a way to solve the actual situation that they might be upset about. Creating a story to help them relax. And sometimes, yes, we call them therapeutic lies. And if somebody is becoming increasingly repetitive and saying, the sink is broken, and I need to go and fix it, and where are my tools, and I need to get my wrench, and so the best thing that we can do is, again, offer that validation that, you know what, I know the sink is broken. I noticed that as well. So I've already called the repairman and they're going to be coming on Saturday. Oh, okay, great. And this might be something that you need to continuously tell your family, because it's become a focus on whatever it might be, that you're recognizing what they are focused on, what they're frustrated with, whatever it might be. I've already called the repairman and they're coming. I have already taken care of that particular issue. Let's sit down and make a grocery list together, and then we'll go and go to the grocery store. And then the redirection. And depending on the situation, it's absolutely going to change every time. So how are we going to redirect somebody when they are becoming increasingly focused?
Sorry.
So let's wait and call your sister after we've had a nap, Mom. She's probably taking a nap now too. Maybe the sisters have a challenging relationship. Maybe they don't talk, but all of a sudden Mom wants to talk to her sister. Maybe the sister has passed away and she can't call. So it's creating that distraction or that other activity. Let's have a nap, because after lunch you usually have a nap, and hopefully after that redirection they might have forgotten that they wanted to contact that person or engage in that activity because you've already redirected. Now, these are just suggestions and strategies. These are for you to put in what I call your toolbox. So when things do happen and they come up, you can say, okay, let me go into my toolbox so I can find which one of my redirection strategies I can use when Mom is upset or when Dad is becoming agitated, and what can I do to help make them relax. So dementia and behavior is a two-sided coin. On one side, you have the behaviors, and then on the other side, you have the cognition, and they really go hand in hand. As individuals' cognition continues to deteriorate, we start to see changes in behaviors. Why are those behaviors changing? It's because the individual's abilities have started to deteriorate, and the cognition, based on a few slides back, what we saw, what the brain is responsible for, has started to deteriorate and take away the functions on individuals' ability to communicate, to be able to reason, to make those safety decisions, to function on a day-to-day basis. If anybody had any of those things starting to be taken away from them, we're absolutely going to see some behaviors, because most of all, I'm frightened and I'm scared and I don't understand what is happening around me. I can't express to you in words how I'm feeling, so something has to give you an indication as what I'm thinking, and that's when behaviors start to come into play. And what is also extremely important is every single behavior has meaning. It does not matter what that behavior is, because they are not able to verbally express themselves. And going back to that pie chart, that 7% is only verbally being articulated, and everything else with how communication is conveyed is through body language, gestures, facial expressions. So if I'm not able to use my 7% of my verbal articulation, I'm going to show you with a behavior. And that behavior is a protective mechanism that I'm going to use, because individuals who are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease have increased fear and increased anxiety. And if somebody is afraid, they're going to let you know. They are lost in their own time and their own place. They might feel that there is so much uncertainty. They don't feel like they are validated in how they are feeling and understand why they are not able to do the things that they were once able to do. So they're going to lash out. So if somebody comes towards them and they have a moment of not recognizing who is coming towards them, the first thing that they're going to do is become protective over themselves. And what we see as an assertive behavior to push back and push them away is going to be a behavior, an aggressive behavior. And that label will stick to that individual. But what that actual behavior really meant was, I'm frightened, don't come any closer to me because I don't know who you are and I'm really frightened. So we need to recognize what that behavior is really trying to say about how that person is feeling. And we need to know who that person is, whether it is your family, whether it's somebody that you are living amongst within your retirement home. You know that person, getting to know who they are. Get to know who that person is, not necessarily their diagnosis and what their disease is. Know them beyond that. So we do see changes in behavior. And I absolutely love this picture of this lovely lady with the baby in the stroller, taking her baby for a walk. So I'm looking at this lovely lady on how it might be perceived from somebody, how she's taking her baby for a walk. Where the first time you see this picture, you're probably thinking, does she need her prescription changed in her glasses? Because I see an older woman pushing a wheelchair and she's got a doll. But I want to know who she is. Maybe she had lots of children. Maybe she was a nurse. Maybe she was working in the daycare field. Maybe she had any kind of career or a stay-at-home mom and took care of her family. And she is taking her baby for a walk in the stroller because it's that time of day and it's now time for the baby to have a nap. You cannot expect an individual who is living with dementia to change. That is not their job. Their brains have deteriorated and they are not able to get back those functions that they have lost. You can influence another person's behavior about how we respond to them, about how our reactions are. And you can control your own behavior. So the way you perceive things and the way you look at this lovely lady can be very different from the way I see it and the way you see it. So this is a list of some what are referred to as responsive behaviors. I'm going to leave this list here. Is there anything on this list that you need some more clarification on or that you do not understand or have no idea what that word might even represent? And you can just call out or put it in the chat if you like.
Jamie, I have a question.
Absolutely.
What would you classify as a catastrophic reaction?
So a catastrophic reaction could be a passing in the family, an accident, something that had happened to them that is going to change their behavior. So usually we classify that with a spouse, that their one spouse has passed away or a family member would be under a catastrophic reaction, an injury. Those would be under that category.
Thank
What
you.
is sundowning?
Yeah.
I am so glad you asked that. And because I get asked that question every time, I have now learned to make a slide just for sundowning. So sundowning is a very, very real thing that does affect many individuals. And what sundowning really is, and we're at that stage of the season now where the sun is starting to set later. So it's happening later in the evening, that dusk time. So as the sun starts to go down and that dusk time starts to settle in, we start to see shadows and reflections. And we see that individuals start to recognize those shadows and those reflections being classified as hallucinations of what those shadows might represent. Provide more, it gives more fear. Maybe there's that shadow in the corner from that coat hanger that represents a person who is hiding in the house. We see that there's a lot of delusion thinking. And this is also because individuals towards the end of the day, maybe they're really tired. We see that individuals start to become more demanding and really more assertive in their behavior at the end of the day, because maybe they can't explain, I'm tired. I've been overstimulated today. All I need to do is sit down and have a cup of tea and maybe put on some music and just actually relax. So we see a lot of changes also with which I still don't understand, and every year they talk about it, with the time change time changes, the daylight savings. We see that there is an absolute change with the cycle, the sleeping patterns, and that there takes like a week or so for people to get reaffirmed into a whole new routine because of that time of day has changed from the season changing. So what can we do to actually help the sundowning process? So the sundowning could start as early as in the winter months, like 4 o'clock. Sometimes it starts to get dark until it gets really dark at about 5:30, depending on the season. So it's close the shutters. We don't want those reflections for our families to be able to see, because those reflections are causing an anxiety and can create any of the behaviors that were in the last slide. So we need to change the environment. So whether it's make the environment more exciting and put on some music and dance around the house, or maybe it's time to put on some quieter music, put on the concert of Andre Rieu, because everybody loves Andre Rieu, and a cup of tea. And maybe it's they need to have a snack a little earlier because they're getting hungry and they're starting to become agitated. So you have maybe a pre-dinner snack where they sit down at the table and they just have maybe half a sandwich with a drink. So it's about changing that environment. And once that sundowning period is over, you will see a difference in that behavior as well. They can be calmer because you've eliminated what other distractions might actually be coming in to their reality. Does that give anybody some or give everybody some assistance in understanding what sundowning is?
Mhm.
Okay. So how we are actually responding to the behaviors. So only after we understand why people are responding the way they do, can we actually meaningfully respond to them. So how are we going to actually manage those challenging behaviors until we really understand what those behaviors are meaning? We need to find out and go from their perspective what it means. We need to find laughter. We got to try and find some humor at some point. This is a very long journey. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Individuals who are living with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, it takes a very difficult toll on the individual going through it, as well as the caregivers and the families who are alongside with them. It's important to maintain safety at all times, but sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I need to just walk away and just give myself a few minutes to regroup myself, because I'm not going to be of any help to my family in the state that I'm feeling, but still staying close enough to make sure that they are safe. Really finding out, putting on your detective hat to find out, what does that behavior mean? What are they really trying to communicate to me? What are they doing? And look at the environment. Maybe they could be sitting at the table and they could be banging their hand on the table. And considering maybe it's close to lunchtime, and maybe if they're banging on the table, what could that behavior mean? Could it mean that they're hungry? Could it mean that they are thirsty? What are they trying to say to me? All behavior has meaning. It's finding out what that behavior means and looking beyond maybe some things we didn't actually recognize as an actual behavior at what they're trying to express to us. So maybe they're trying to communicate that they're hungry, or that they need to use the washroom, or that they're tired, or average seniors are on 8 to 10 different medications. Maybe they're feeling pain and they need their Tylenol now. Many individuals, myself included, experience arthritis. If I'm not able to use my 7% of my verbal abilities, how am I going to explain to you that I am in pain? Maybe I'm going to throw something at you, but I'm not throwing something at you to hurt you. I'm throwing something at you to gain your attention, so you can pay attention to me and come to me, so I can somehow, with my behavior, explain to you I'm in pain. Many individuals have infections, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced their families or somebody else who have had a urinary tract infection. They're unfortunately very common. So somebody who's not able to express themselves, what behaviors are you noticing with somebody experiencing a urinary tract infection?
Frequent trips to the washroom.
Right? What other behaviors might you see?
Shifting, pacing,
Yeah.
Confusion,
Yes.
irritability.
Irritability. Good. Yeah. So you now know if this is coming out of left field and they are not usually pacing, irritable, and everything that you have mentioned, but all of a sudden they wake up in the morning and they're showing all of these behaviors, you now know, you are now an expert going, okay, you know what? This behavior is now indicating to me, without even them saying to me, I think they might have a urinary tract infection. And that is reading the behaviors. Sometimes there are sensory impairments. Vision becomes impaired. Hearing becomes impaired. Are the batteries working in the hearing aid? Are they wearing their hearing aids? Are they in the right ears? Are their dentures in properly? As individuals also start to lose weight, your gums actually start to lose the flesh as well. So maybe they're starting to get sores in their mouth and the dentures need to be realigned, readjusted, or whatever needs to be done so they don't have the sores. So look at the whole picture and what all of those things that they are showing you, not just saying to you, is really meaning. Each person, it doesn't matter at what stage, when they are diagnosed, has strengths and has great abilities. And this is when I was also saying, look beyond the diagnosis and look at the person themselves. We want to maintain that independence. We want them to actually be able to complete and do something successfully. We are not wanting to set them up to fail. So we want to be able to provide those abilities and work on those strengths so they can actually complete something. But look at what it is that you are having them do. If they were once a carpenter, they're not going to go out and say, hey, Kristen, can you go and help me build the shed in the backyard when your dementia has progressed? However, what I might actually say to you is, I'm trying to build a birdhouse. Could you help me sand the wood down? So I'm looking at what might be involved in what you used to do, and I'm still maintaining those abilities, but I'm also adapting them and I'm not making them childlike. I'm actually trying to build something and I need your expertise, and I know I need to use the sandpaper. So am I going to use the really gritty one or am I going to use the softer one? Could you help me figure out which one to use? And then she might say that one. Oh, fantastic. Do I sand up and down or side to side? So you want to be able to still maintain whatever abilities it is and hobbies. You know your families. You know what their strengths are. We need to adapt to what those hobbies or those things that they were once able to do without the supervision. But we need to also recognize that there is a deterioration, there is a progression. So how am I going to adapt that once hobby to still make it important in their life? And this is just some ideas that I put together for some activities that people have used with their families, writing a letter to some family and friends, and just, with an actual pen and paper, old school, not typing an email. And even if they're not able to use the words to explain, sitting together and saying, oh, okay, so I'm going to write a letter to Sandra, Mom. Dear Sandra, today is beautiful, and should I say sunny? And maybe you're going to start to nod your head. So I'm using what your skills are, whatever it might be, to help with whatever activity what they might be involved in. Maybe they can't knit, but they can help with rolling the yarn. One thing that I started to do was with the Christmas cards that we would get in at the day program, we would start making bookmarks out of them and Christmas tags. So we would start cutting out pictures from the cards that we would get so we could reuse them for something meaningful. And that everybody really enjoyed doing. Some people made tassels, whatever it was that their abilities were. So it's finding in your family what it is that their strength is and how to maintain it. One thing that is so important, and I just want to take a moment to talk about, is the Finding Your Way program. And this is really important for people who are living in the community. And with our 2 retirement homes, staff really need to be aware, and families need to be aware that individuals, we want you to be in the community. We have the ability for you to live safely in the community within these retirement residents. And that unfortunately things can happen and people can go missing without even recognizing it. And oftentimes people do go missing within their own familiar surroundings. They might, especially with the construction time, they might usually make a left when they're usually going right, but now it's blocked off. So now they're starting to get disoriented within their own environment. And it's frightening because there's 3 out of 5 individuals who are living with dementia do go missing within their communities. And if somebody does go missing, what is the protocol? What do you need to do? First thing, don't even question it. Call 911. Don't think that you're bothering them. It's call 911 or go down to Sandra, to Kristen, whoever, if you're in one of their lovely retirement residents, and saying, Joe has gone missing. Great, let's call 911. Okay. So, and then you give them all of the information that you need. There's a Finding Your Way website with a great form. This is a completely free thing. And what you do is you write down all the information that is required about your family. And actually, Kristen and Sandra, what I can do is send you packages so you can distribute them if you are interested in that. So when somebody does go missing, you're completely just frightened and you're not able to even recall, okay, what color hair does Joe have? Wait a second, does Joe even have hair? Because you're so worried, you don't even recall if he's wearing glasses, how tall is he? So when you have this kit, you write everything down and then you can say, okay, here, Monica Lees, who is our York Region part of the senior safety team, here's all my information, go and find Joe right now. And that's all that they need. So if you are out and about, how do you recognize that somebody might be lost and they might be living with a dementia? Well, somebody on a nice day like today and is not going to be wearing snow boots and a big heavy coat and a hat and mitts. So that might seem a little strange. And then you're looking at them and they're standing in one place and kind of just gazing around, having a distraught, disoriented look in their face. And they could be talking to themselves. Now, it is not your responsibility to approach them. It is completely up to you, and to be very careful and cautious. Again, don't hesitate. Call 911, explain what you have seen, and you can either stay until the police arrive, but take a step back so your safety is not compromised, as well as the person who appears to be lost. And if you do choose to approach the person, speak slowly, like we talked about some of the tips when you are communicating, because if we speak loud, they could become frightened and it could increase their anxiety if they recognize that they are lost. Very simple questions. Can I help you? Are you lost? And sometimes people will be able to answer your questions and allow them to actually answer their questions. And sometimes you might need to repeat the question and wait for them to answer. When somebody does go home, if it is one of your spouses or a family member, if you are residing within one of the retirement residents, be prepared and calm, because it is our instant reaction to be, oh my God, Joe, are you okay? What happened? And our reaction is absolutely going to play a role in how they're going to react. So we want to say, hey, Joe, great to see you. I have a hot cup of tea waiting for you. Shall we go and sit down together? And it's really trying to maintain that calmness, because they might be frightened, they might be disoriented, but they are going to actually react to our reactions. So there is the website, the Finding Your Way website that you can go on, and there are fantastic online free courses for all staff, for families to take. Gives you wonderful interactive information, how to keep your family safe at home, how to keep your family safe in the community. Because at the end of the day, we want people to be independent and we want them to be safe. So what can we do to help educate not only each other, but it's also my job to educate other people and businesses how they can respond if they see somebody come in that also they think that they might recognize this person and they might be lost. So when you do get the slides from our ladies here, then if you have a moment, go online to the Finding Your Way, and it will give you some great strategies that you can use. So there was a lot of information today, and here are just a few things to recognize from today's session, and then I'll open up to any questions that you might have. Recognizing that everybody is on their own journey and that not everybody is going to experience the same symptoms or the same behaviors. There is that myth that individuals do become aggressive. Now, I do this for aggressive because that is a really, really strong word. And if you are going to call somebody aggressive, then there needs to be some extreme behavior that has happened. Individuals become assertive because they are frightened and they are protecting themselves and their well-being. Their communication, their ability to communicate has changed, just as our ability to communicate with our families has changed as well. So it's really understanding what they are trying to say to us, and that what their behavior that they are displaying to us is communication. And I need to be Sherlock Holmes and find out, what is that behavior meaning? And you've already listed off fantastic behaviors that might indicate that family might be experiencing a urinary tract infection. Keep continuing to build on their strengths. Use their abilities that they still have. You might need to adapt them as individuals do progress, but it's so important that individuals feel wanted and have purpose. So continue to do that. The Finding Your Way program is a great program and will offer you fantastic suggestions on how you can keep your family safe in the community. And community is also living within the retirement residence. And that's what we want, to be able for our families to be independent and to be able to be safe, and for you to know that they are safe. And lastly, that the Alzheimer's Society is always here, that we will work, and we do have partnerships with many community agencies to get the help, the guidance, and the suggestions that you might need to guide you and your families through this journey. Whether it's getting help inside or whether it's finding a retirement residence within your area that has the availability that's close to your family, we will work with you, our social workers, our support groups, as well as myself, that does us 4 different series of education for families who are living with somebody who has been diagnosed with dementia. So I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Sandra and Kristen very much for having me attend today again. And at this point, I would be more than happy to answer any questions if you have.
Hey, Jamie, thank you so much for that presentation. I know there are a couple of questions in the chat, if I can just ask them, and what people have written here. So this is from Alice, and she says, nursing homes always use antipsychotic medication to control agitation. Do you agree?
Woo, okay. Medications are absolutely something that can be used to assist with some behaviors. Medication is not going to take away symptoms like the memory loss. It will help with certain circumstances. The one thing that you also need to recognize with a lot of these medications is they do have side effects. So if somebody is anxious and they are now taking medication to reduce that anxiety, it might reduce the anxiety. However, they might also experience some other side effects like difficulties with mobility, which will increase chances of falls, because they still might have the thought process of needing to go somewhere, and that hasn't been taken away because they've been prescribed a medication. It's just slowed them down and has given them that slower ability to get to where they are feeling that they need to get to. There are medications that absolutely do need to be prescribed for different things, but it's also important to really sit and see how they are actually responding to the medication. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for any of these really strong medications to actually get settled into a person. It's not a matter of whether I agree or disagree. I do believe that there are other ways of trying to find out why my family might be displaying the behavior that they might be prior to prescribing a certain medication. And it is difficult within long-term care due to staffing right now. And if you feel that the medication is not working or you have questions, be an advocate and always ask. And if the doctors are not able to answer your questions about the medication, go to your pharmacist, and your pharmacist is a wealth of knowledge and will be able to give you such fantastic information about the combination of medications that your family is on.
Thank you, Jamie. There's actually a second part to that question.
Okay.
The second part was, the doctors say the antipsychotic medication needs to be increased in dosage if the agitation still occurred when doing personal care and showers. Do you agree?
So personal care is a very intimate thing. Imagine somebody that you are not familiar with is coming in and saying, "Hey, Sandra, time to get naked and get you in the shower." Whoa. So I am going to show signs of agitation and I am going to get very frustrated. So it's really about the approach from the person who is going to be providing that personal care. It's not about increasing the medication to provide personal care. It's on the hands of the individual that is going to be providing that and how they're going to approach your family and say, okay, so we are going to brush our teeth now. And it's, you know, there's so many ways of using communication and building that bond and that trust with that person, instead of jumping to increasing a medication because they are not being cooperative with personal care. Take the time to get to know somebody before you actually ask them to strip down to their bare buttocks and get them in the shower, because that's a very personal and intimate thing. And unless it's Channing Tatum coming in, it's not going to happen. So, nope.
Agreed. Thanks, Jamie. One other question we have here. Andrea would like more information on your day program.
On our day programs, absolutely. So we do have 2 day programs that are currently still running. We are opening up a Stouffville day program again shortly, hopefully. It will be opening up once this lockdown is completed. Our day programs, pre-COVID, we're running 7 days a week from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. We run a variety of programs that are changing every half hour to 45 minutes, which we also have our meals. We have a variety of programs that change from a cognitive stimulation to a physical stimulation. In our Aurora Day program and in our Thornhill Day program, we do have beautiful outside gardens that our participants are able to go out and walk around within a fenced area, and we get them to do the gardening and we get them to do the planting and deadheading of the plants and growing the vegetables. We are currently very limited on how many individuals. We have 2 cohorts that are currently being run at the Thornhill Day program and Aurora Day program due to COVID, and it's only Monday to Saturday, and the times have been altered. Hopefully, as we all continue to get vaccinated and COVID kind of hopefully leaves, we will be able to get our programs back up and running to our 7 days of the week with our regular routine. If you are interested in our day programs, you can, our day program waitlist is actually done through the LIN. So you need to go through the LIN through a caseworker, and we will get the referral, and referral will get sent to our first link coordinator, and you will get set up with one of our social workers.
That's great. Thank you. I have one last question here.
Okay.
So Alice asked, what is the lifespan from diagnosis to end of life?
So everybody is very different, and there is oftentimes an average of 7 years before somebody is actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia, that individuals have already been living with Alzheimer's disease. Now, the average is approximately 20 years that somebody can live with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. But to also take into consideration that individuals have other health underlying conditions or might develop other health conditions that will play a factor into either the progression of the deterioration of the disease, or depending on what that diagnosis is, individuals can plateau. Each person is extremely different, but I will say that what we have noticed is the average is approximately 20 years.
That's great. Thank you, Jamie. I don't have any more questions in the chat here. If anybody has a question for Jamie before we wrap this up, feel free to ask right now.
Hi, it's Dan Ferguson calling, or on the chat. Just a quick question. First of all, comment, Jamie, is it great presentation, lots of great information. Thank you very much. I wanted to know, and I've actually emailed you as well too. Is there any way to get the PowerPoint, or at least the PDF of the PowerPoint of the presentation? Because I'd love to share this with my siblings.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to email it right after we finish to Sandra and Kristen, and then they can distribute it out. I will send out a PDF and you will have access to it. And I also did send out last week's presentation to them as well.
Okay.
So you will have both copies. Last week was about Alzheimer's disease, and today communication and behavior. My contact information is on the last slide with my email. If you do need any more information or interested in any of the education series that I do facilitate, get in touch with me. Any other questions about any of our support groups, you're more than welcome, or just random questions that you might have, send me an email and I will get back to you.
Okay, that actually, that was the next question, is that if there are things, you know, this is a one-way train and things are moving in a particular direction, and different things have come up over time. And we're entering into a situation right now, and everybody's, as you said, the journey is specific. If we have a question that we'd like to get advice on, is that something that you know, we can give a call, or just say, listen, can we get 5 minutes just to get another vantage point of someone who's a little bit more, obviously more experienced than we are in how to handle the situation?
Absolutely. My email is on the last slide, and you said you already sent me an email. So you can always, the best thing is to email me, because I'm very, very rarely in the office.
Fair.
So
Yeah.
Send me an email. If you want to talk on the phone, you can give me your phone number. We can discuss it over the phone, or we can converse through email. And if I am not able to, depending on what that situation might be that you're experiencing, to assist you, then I will absolutely find that resource for you to help you with what you are dealing with.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I think that's it. So, no more questions. We'll definitely share the presentation with anybody that is interested. Once we receive it from Jamie, well, Kristen and I will be more than happy to send it out to you. Kristen being in Richmond Hill area, I'm in the Newmarket area. So please send us, you can either just leave it in the chat or send us a quick email to whoever you want to communicate with, and we'll make sure that you are, can get the presentation and share it with family members. We just want to thank Jamie. It was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much. And you certainly broke everything down in terms I think that everybody could certainly understand, and we really appreciate you taking the time, Jamie.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great being here to do these two presentations, and I look forward to working with everybody again.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon, and the sun is shining, so vitamin D is important.
Oh, for sure. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.